Before we talk about strategy and exports, we need to pause and acknowledge something profound. A young pilot, a son, perhaps a husband, a friend, strapped himself into an aircraft he believed in. An aircraft built by his nation. An aircraft that represented his country's dreams of technological independence and self-reliance. He knew the risks. Every test pilot knows. But he also knew something deeper, that his sacrifice, if necessary, would mean India's scientific progress wouldn't stop, that the Tejas would fly again, that his nation's dream of indigenous defense capabilities would continue. When the aircraft went into that unrecoverable spin, the footage suggests he fought till his last breath. He didn't eject, not because he was careless, but because in those final seconds, his instinct wasn't survival. It was to save the aircraft, to minimize damage, to protect the years of work, the hundreds of engineers, the thousands of dreams invested in that machine. That's not just patriotism. That's love for his country's scientific journey. He will never see the Tejas exported to Brazil. He will never know if his sacrifice helped India cross the threshold from importer to exporter. But his courage, his final act, is woven into the story of India's defense renaissance. His family didn't just lose a son. India lost a guardian of its progress. And that loss deserves to be honored, not weaponized, not turned into political ammunition. For over 30 years, India has been building something unique. The HAL Tejas, a light combat aircraft designed and manufactured entirely in India. But here's the crucial part. The Tejas was never just for India's Air Force. It was always meant for export. In 2023, India was in advanced negotiations with at least 6 countries: Argentina, Egypt, Nigeria, Philippines, Malaysia, and Botswana. Each represented a potential breakthrough, not just in defense sales, but in India's global standing as a defense manufacturer. But here's the critical fact we need to understand. The Tejas had never secured a single export order. Not one. Why? Because buyers wait. They wait to see if an aircraft delivers what it promises. They watch demonstrations, they observe operational record, and they wait for confidence. In February 2023, Malaysia issued a global tender for light combat aircraft. 8 countries submitted proposals. 2 finalists, India's Tejas and South Korea's FA-50. Malaysia had 36 aircraft requirements. The potential contract was worth $920 million, a massive win for India's defense export ambitions. What happened? South Korea won. KAI's FA-50 had a crucial advantage, a proven track record. South Korea had already delivered FA-50s to Indonesia, the Philippines, and Thailand. Buyers could see the aircraft in action. They could talk to existing customers. India had theoretically superior technology, but demonstrated capability mattered more than specifications. But Malaysia wasn't the only loss. Argentina was considering up to 18 Tejas fighters. Egypt wanted 20 aircraft with technology transfer and an MRO facility, a deal that would have established India as a regional defense hub. All of these conversations were fragile. They depended on one thing: confidence that India will deliver. And then, in recent months, something changed. A new opportunity emerged. In October 2025, reports emerged of a landmark barter deal between India and Brazil, a swap arrangement that could become India's first export sale. Here's the structure. India gives Brazil Tejas Mark 1A fighters and Prachand light combat helicopters. Brazil gives India C-390 Millennium transport aircraft. For India, this was historic, the first formal international deal for the Tejas. But, and this is crucial, this wasn't a done deal. It was an advanced stage agreement. Brazilian Defense Ministry officials initially denied the claim. A formal contract had not been signed. Why? Because Brazil was watching deliveries to the Indian Air Force, watching operational performance, waiting for one thing: proof that the aircraft works. The timeline matters here. The first Tejas Mark 1A was supposed to reach the IAF in October 2025. As of November 2025, just days ago, that delivery hadn't happened. The aircraft was still in production. For Brazil, for Egypt, for Argentina, they were all waiting for the same signal: India delivers what it promises. To understand why the Tejas matters for India's defense future, you need to understand the bigger picture. India's defense exports reached $2.76 billion in 2024-25, an all-time high, but still small compared to global leaders like the US, Russia, and European countries. The government's target is $25 billion in defense exports by 2025. The Tejas was supposed to be a flagship, not just an aircraft, a symbol that India could design, manufacture, and export world-class defense systems. HAL has expanded its production facilities across Bangalore, Nasik, and Coimbatore. It has integrated over 500 domestic suppliers. For the first time, India was building an entire ecosystem around a defense product. The 97 aircraft order, worth $7 billion, signed in September 2025, represents India's commitment to this vision. But every contract, every negotiation, every export conversation depends on one fundamental thing: operational success and delivery. Here's what defense analysts are saying. The crash likely resulted from either engine loss or aerodynamic stall at low altitude during an acrobatic maneuver. Both are unrecoverable situations. This doesn't mean the aircraft is fundamentally flawed. It means aerobatic demonstrations at low altitude are inherently dangerous. The US, Russia, and other nations have learned this lesson. They don't demonstrate fighter jets the way air shows do anymore. The investigation will tell us what happened. HAL will likely make modifications. The program will continue. But perception matters more than facts in defense procurement. Here's the strategic reality. India's in a competitive race for defense export dominance in the global south. South Korea with the F-50 is years ahead. They've established ecosystems in Southeast Asia. They have demonstrated capability. Turkey is entering the market with the Khorezjet. Pakistan with China offers a JF-17. Brazil itself manufactures the Gripen, under license. India's advantage was timing and cost. The Tejas is affordable and modern, but affordability only matters if you deliver. The Tejas was India's chance to establish a beachhead in the defense export market, to prove that Indian-made can compete globally, to build an ecosystem that generates billions in revenue and employment. That window, the moment when countries make their procurement decisions, is narrow. Right now, it's closing. Buyers like Argentina have already made preliminary commitments to other platforms. Egypt's interest has cooled as timelines slipped. Malaysia is satisfied with the F-50. Brazil was a last realistic opportunity for a first export success. Can India recover from this? Yes, but it requires speed and transparency. First, a credible investigation, not a PR exercise, a real inquiry into what failed. Engine manufacturer, aircraft design, pilot error, the truth matters. Second, modifications if necessary. The court of inquiry will likely recommend changes to demonstration protocols, possible structural reinforcements, or engine modifications. Third, delivery. HAL must deliver Tejas to the IAF on schedule. If the first aircraft reaches the IAF, if it operates reliably, if it proves itself in service, that's the real test. Not Dubai, not demonstrations, real operations. Fourth, transparency with potential buyers. Brazil, Egypt, Argentina, they need honest communication. They need to see the investigation findings. They need confidence that the aircraft has been tested and proven. And yet, here's what we know will happen. Within hours of the crash, certain voices will emerge. Not to mourn, not to investigate, but to weaponize. The government bought defective aircraft. HAL is incompetent. Indian technology cannot compete. We should have bought foreign jets. This narrative isn't new. It follows every indigenous project in India, every DRDO development, every HAL initiative. Whenever India attempts to become self-reliant, a systematic ecosystem of opposition forms. But here's the dangerous part. This narrative doesn't just harm the government of the day, it harms India's future. When potential buyers, Brazil, Egypt, Argentina, see this ecosystem of doubt, what do they think? They think, if India doesn't believe in its own aircraft, why should we? When foreign defense companies see this opening, what do? They exploit it. They amplify the negative narrative. They fund media stories. They create doubt. The anti-government narrative becomes anti-India. The political opposition becomes commercial advantage for foreign powers. This crash will be investigated. Facts will emerge. Accountability will be assigned if needed. But simultaneously, a parallel narrative war will unfold. One narrative will seek truth. The other will seek to delegitimize India's entire defense ecosystem. And the collateral damage won't just be political. It will be economic. Hundreds of thousands of jobs in the defense supply chain, billions in lost export opportunities, years of delayed self-reliance. The pilot sacrifice will be used not to build India's future, but to undermine it. The investigation starts now. The narrative war starts now. Which side of history will you stand on? The world is watching. But more importantly, the future is watching.